love that.
All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. We're up.
What's up, everybody? McLean Taylor, David Swenson, and Logan Larkin here. We are with Connect or Die, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for listening and tuning into our stuff. We're going to be talking about some crazy stuff today. Frankly, we don't even know what we're going to be talking about right now. We have a couple of different topics on our mind, but you know, I've had a lot of people reach out to me recently as I've been going through a faith transition of my own, and it's interesting because I've learned that there are many different groups of people in how they express themselves, what they believe in, and so forth. And I guess I really don't know how this is going to evolve, but I just feel like I needed to share this.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I trust you, and I trust me,
There
and
are
I trust Dave.
And yeah.
And take your shit and spin. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we're gonna spin it on the table of life.
Spin some gold.
Well, what I found is that there's a couple of different people that have reached out to me. I've noticed that, number one, there are people who believe in their religion, but they don't actually believe that their religion is true. They believe that, and by the way, like our discussion that we had, it's very, very different in the aspect of there are people who have read and studied the exact same things that I do, but they choose to stay in that religion simply because it offers them great amount of value in family values.
Right.
And then there are other people who they leave just due to their own personal preference. It has zero to do with reading anything. It just has to do with how they feel. And then there are other people who are blindly following. Okay,
Right.
I mean, in every religion there are those people. And then there are
And outside of religion.
Absolutely.
and outside of religion.
I mean, like
Like
look at
absolutely.
politics these days. Like,
or like the
people who-
religion of atheism.
Yeah.
I think that there's plenty of people.
Honestly,
in the
I don't
same
even
thing.
like to subscribe to. Well, what I've noticed is that everybody is like, "Oh, you should join our network. You should join our group of people. You should join ours." And to be very frank, I don't know if there is a God. I don't know. I'd like to believe that there is.
Yeah.
Because, and we talked a little bit about this
Yeah.
before we got in, like the way that the world is designed and planets are designed, the magnetic fields, the atmosphere, how things play into creating liquid water and life, what keeps space molecules from crashing into our Earth and destroying it, even
Like
space
if we
dust.
didn't have Jupiter,
Oh my gosh.
like a meteor literally hit Jupiter that created a crater bigger than our planet. And if it wouldn't have hit Jupiter, we'd have been gone.
Yeah. Thank heavens to Jupiter, right?
Yeah.
You took one for the team.
Thank you, Jupiter.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jupiter.
You know that big hole?
Is there a religion out there that prays to Jupiter? Like,
Actually, yeah. the
Isn't
Romans.
Jupiter-
It's-
Jupiter's
yeah,
a
it's-
god,
yeah, it's-
That would
I
be
thought that
Zeus.
was Greek. Is that
Jupiter's
Greek?
No,
God.
Greek is Zeus, and then Romans are the planets.
Oh, okay.
So like Neptune would be
Right,
Poseidon
right,
and so
that's
forth.
right.
so
that's
Jupiter
right.
is the Zeus equivalent.
So thank you, Jupiter, right? And whether that's religious or
Thanks,
not,
Jupiter.
like I'm grateful for Jupiter, to be honest.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed and what I'm really, really drawn to, if I'm removing all outside influence and I'm just going into what I personally have experienced, I have found so much deep connection when I go out late at night and I just look up at the moon. And I don't know what it is. I've kind of dabbled a little bit with shamanism, but I'm like, I don't know. Like if I fully believe that, I don't know. But I'm willing to explore those ideas. I'm willing to, because I genuinely feel connected to the night sky. I feel connected to the cosmos. I feel connected to planets. I feel connected to Earth. And I think that everybody kind of does too. I mean, that's where the term grounded comes from, right?
Yeah.
And so as I've been delving deeper into this, I've found a lot of peace in the mystery. A lot of peace in not knowing everything. Whereas I found so much how do you say that? Turbulence, I guess, or tumult. In this idea that I have to know something. And I've let go of that and I've said, you know what, I don't know, and that's okay. And that has actually brought me a lot of peace. And so, as other people have come to me and they've asked me these questions, that's the number one thing that I've said. I've said, look, like, I can't claim to know whether my choice is right or wrong, you know, in leaving the church or leaving a religion, because you're the one that ultimately has to make that decision for yourself, right? But what I'm going to encourage you to do is to always have an open mind and understand that it is okay to be wrong, it's okay to be right, but ultimately, it's okay to not know.
Yeah. So can I ask you questions?
Yes, go for it.
This is something that literally
Can I ask you questions?
So no, I
No,
just thought
Dave.
of this. But,
No!
So one thing that I've noticed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
Totally. One thing I've noticed though is that you've identified yourself as leaving the church, rather than just exploring it and seeing what's going on and then kind of going from there.
Maybe that's the case with maybe that's the case with how it's being presented, because I did tie my identity to the church at one point.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And so in order for me to disconnect from that, I kind of have to make it known, hey, I have disconnected from this. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm identifying with it, though.
Yeah.
Because I personally, I understand some of the anti-jokes and stuff. I'm like, all right, you got me to kind of chuckle a little bit, like, at that. But then there are times when I feel like people go a little too far, you know? And because there are genuinely great people within any religion or any organization, and they're doing their best, and poking fun at something that is, frankly, it's sacred to that person. It doesn't bode well for me.
Right.
I'd much rather people have the mindset of growth and learning. And the only way that I know how to do that is this acceptance that it is okay to not know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And truly, I have not met a single person who has gone beyond the grave for multiple days at a time and then come back. I'm sure that there might be a couple of people who have flatlined and come back and they've had experiences. I've talked with a couple of those people, but I'm talking about like Jesus Christ level. Like you're dead for 3 days, you come back to life and you're like, hey guys, I learned a couple of things, right? I've never met somebody like that.
Right.
And so this idea that we know something, it actually can potentially stop our ability to learn and ask hard or good questions.
So this kind of brings up something interesting. I was talking to, so you know I've been meditating for like a year now.
Yeah.
Right? Like very regularly. Pretty much every day. When I got into it, all I was doing was the counting. What I told you, I just try to count to 10. That's it, without a thought coming in. And as soon as a thought came in, I restart. And
it's good.
Yeah,
that
it's
actually.
I've literally like sat for 10 minutes and been like, one, crap. One. To the point where like I've started like meditating on the word one.
Yeah.
And it was actually incredibly like I had some of the same thoughts that you had in terms of like the unity. I was like, literally the entire universe is made of the same material that I'm made of.
Isn't that beautiful?
And like, whoa.
It's kind of cool, right?
One. And so anyway, sorry.
So the reason I bring that up though, so I started talking to this girl that we work with. She does foot zoning and she's helped my wife immensely. It's just really powerful stuff. But she knows a lot about meditation. So I started talking to her.
I want to try
dude,
that someday.
that is a trip. She's going to take all your walls and just crush them.
Guys, apparently, foot zoning is the shit. Okay?
I've heard.
You have to
I've
go
heard
to
some
the
other
right
things.
people, but it's like you feel exposed. Like she'll be like, "Oh, what about this?" And you're like, "I don't ever talk about that with anyone." You know, like she'll just like bring up.
What about your pornography?
Yeah, well, it wasn't. I mean, I'm pretty open about that. She just would explain ways that I saw the world, and I'm like,
oh
no, I saw the world that way, and now I see it, and I can't unsee it.
Oh my
But anyway, so I was talking.
Have you ever
to
seen
her.
How I Met Your Mother? How it's like this shattering of glass, and then suddenly you recognize everybody's quirks.
Yeah.
So like how Jason, when he laughs, he's just like, you'll never unhear it ever again. Every time he laughs,
It's like Tom Cruise. He used to have a tooth.
Oh,
in his
no!
head, and he got it changed.
Yeah.
Go look that up.
So
But,
he actually had it changed.
He got it
Yeah, he got it
changed.
fixed.
Yeah, somehow. I don't
Good
know.
for him.
I'm sure he got just
Veneers.
His
Yeah,
teeth
veneers.
were so bad when he
Dude,
was
his-
in, what was it, The Outsiders?
Yeah.
What, Pony Boy or whatever?
I think in Top Gun he still had bad teeth.
It was not like in The Outsiders. His teeth
Yeah.
looked like a mangled mess.
Yeah.
Like, good for him.
Good for him.
Anyway,
That's awesome.
we
So-
have derailed you a couple of times.
So anyway, I was talking to her about meditation. I was explaining some of the experiences I've had where I've like left my body. Like I just like it almost felt like I stepped out and above myself and I was looking down at myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would get sucked back in. And that would happen. I would just be sitting meditating and then like all of a sudden 2 hours had passed. I'm like, where did that time go? Like it was really strange. So I started explaining some of these experiences that I had. You know, like influx of color. Like I'd be able to see different colors, and it was just me experimenting. I was like, hey, I understand the principles of meditation. I want to go see what happens. She's like, just so you know, that's not most people's experience.
Yeah.
Like, okay. She's like, most people have to meditate for 10 years in order to start to have experiences like you're describing. And I'm like, okay. And I wonder if the fact that I didn't read anything and I was just like, let's just go see what happens. Like one meditation I would do is I would imagine, all I would imagine is
Dragons.
a lake of water. Dragons.
He does that though.
I
You do a thing where you imagine dragons.
Yeah, where I imagine dragons when it's cold outside and I'm warming
Trying
myself
to warm
up.
yourself up.
But I would just imagine a lake of water like at night where it almost looks like oil. And then any thought creates a ripple. And so I would try to make the water flat. Like all I would focus on is the water being flat.
You know what's crazy is I've been trained in multiple forms of meditation, and what you have successfully done, if I'm understanding correctly, any thought creates a ripple, and the only way to truly see yourself is to remove all thought, right? Is that what you're going with?
Right.
It?
Just create quiet.
That's
peace.
That's an Indian, like from India.
Yeah.
Like a meditation from India that
Right.
they talk about. It talks about the stillness of the lake, essentially. And you're only truly able to see yourself when it is a mirror.
Yeah.
And what also is interesting is another form of meditation that trains how you manage stress in your brain is you remove all of the distractions from it as well. So when you're counting up from 1, there's actually another meditation technique where all you do is you focus on, they call it the sound or the noise, right? And it's a nonsense word. It's shivyum. So shivyum. And you can say it slow, you can say it fast. I only teach this to people who do certain things consistently in our coaching programs. So Merry Christmas, guys. You're getting access to a high-level technique in where you meditate. But essentially what it does is it trains the brain. Every time that there's a distraction, you go back to shivyum. Shivyum, shivyum, shivyum. And you do it for 20 minutes straight. And it actually trains your limbic system in how you manage stress. And you're able to remove that aspect eventually if you practice it long enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's so cool that you are doing it on your own in your own way and it's working for you.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting that just the lack of having meditation in a box.
Yeah.
That like this is the kinds of experience I'm supposed to have, and rather just being like, I just want to see what happens. That's what me and Natalie did for 2018. We just kept saying, let's see.
Yeah.
That's what we say. Let's see. Let's just try this and let's see what happens. Let's try this. Let's try starting this business. Let's try investing all of your commissions right back into the business. Let's see what happens. You know, and that gave us the freedom to be flexible.
Yeah.
Rather than have one set
So
pattern.
I think it's interesting, you know, just so what you're saying is, you brought this up because McLean was talking about his experience in the church.
Right.
Like, what was it that caused you to go there? So he was talking about his experiences in the church and the idea of knowing, and you went to this idea of like, when you put something in a box, you might be getting in the way of the progression you would have if you just ultimately just experienced it for what it is.
And I like your mantra or your motto of let's see.
But let's like, I don't want to put words in it. Is that what? Because I've seen you navigate a similar path that I've navigated in terms of like, you know, we're all LDS. We grew up LDS, went on LDS missions, navigating, reading some of the same things or having some of the same experiences that I've had. But instead of leaving, you've just said, no, this doesn't have to be in a box. The church does not have to be in a box.
It's not in or out.
You're like, the church is what I make it, and I make it fluid.
Yeah.
I make it whatever, and I admire that.
I do
because
too.
I know that it's challenging. There was a time when I was in that place as well, because I agree with McLean. I think that if you claim to know something, I think you've now stopped.
Right.
Well, I know it.
Right.
And I was never comfortable. Really, honestly, I was never comfortable saying I knew that certain things were true. I was comfortable saying I've had these experiences where I feel like I've received confirmation, but I don't know if I can say that I know it.
Yeah.
That always seems so final to me.
Yeah.
And I think it created divides between me and people. It's
Oh,
like,
well,
well, I know this is
absolutely.
true. And if you don't know it, then
Yeah.
I'm on a higher level.
Yeah.
And not that I ever would say that, but I always felt that way. I was the one in the boat
Right.
saving the drowning.
Right.
When in reality,
You're
when
the
I
one
look back,
drowning.
I was drowning.
Yeah.
Trying to save the drowning. And
Well-
drowning further because I was trying to lift people
Yeah.
from the shame and the things. And again, I would never look at an organization and say, you're the reason why.
Yeah.
I felt this way, but these things definitely have an influence.
Right.
And when you grow up from a young age saying, this is spirituality, this is what it means to be righteous, this is what it means to live well, this is what it means to be worthy of everything, and it's placed in a box, it is so hard to get out of it.
Right.
It is so hard to get out of it.
To be fair,
To get out of the box or to disconnect yourself from the box so that you can look at it and say, well, what is it actually?
Yeah.
And how can I use it to be more like
Well,
who I want to be?
And that's I think the biggest separation I had to make was that the definitions that I had been told were that person's definition.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, this is just your definition. This is the way you see it.
This isn't
And
God's
so
definition.
I'm not here to try to say that your way is wrong.
This
I
is
think there
just
can be
your
issues,
experience.
but that's the way you see it. That's fine. And it freed me up to allow myself to read things and to study in a way that I was like, oh, like when I'm reading about Captain Moroni and I'm learning the lessons that he teaches, it was like, wow, it was like I was seeing it for the first time,
Well, you have
rather than seeing it through someone else's perspective of that.
Yeah, and you have an interesting perspective when it comes to like fact versus truth.
Right.
I think that,
Yeah.
are you willing to talk
So
about
I
that?
think we all do
talk about
actually.
that.
Isn't truth how we all define it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but like truth is what empowers you. A lie is what disempowers you.
Right.
A fact is something that is historically proven or
Right.
whatever it may be.
Yeah, but and I think one thing that's interesting is I think the facts actually can change, but they have, like, truth doesn't. Facts, like I'll give you an example of this. Let's say someone thinks the fact that their marriage looks good, right? And then they find out 7 years down the line that their spouse has been cheating on them. All of a sudden, the facts of their life change.
So
All of a sudden, like,
But does the
all of a
truth
sudden-
of their life change?
But the truth, yeah, it might. But I think the truth of living certain principles doesn't change,
Yeah.
right?
I think
so-
that fact, in my opinion, is concrete,
Yeah,
right? And obviously we disagree
Yeah.
on that.
yeah.
And that's okay.
Well,
It's just
I
how
don't
we're
think
labeling
that-
certain
I guess
ideas.
I'm getting kind
If
of in
I'm
the weeds,
understanding
but-
you, it's like
Yeah.
it's an opinion or a perception. That's
Yeah.
how.
Well, most of the
Fact is-
facts are opinions.
Well, think
Are
about
like
think
like you can take facts. I could give you facts, right? Like that these statistics are true, and the way I package it, I can make
Perceive
it a
it.
lie.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I can make it something
And
that disempowers and destroys
out of
others.
context, so forth.
No, you can even keep it in context, and the way that you present it to someone else.
Now I'm curious. How do we give an example of something?
Well, look at go watch CNN,
Yeah.
Okay.
go watch Fox News.
Fair.
They will take the exact
Same
same
facts.
thing and draw
Right.
different conclusions.
Right.
And I think an easy example of this is for the longest time, people didn't know that tobacco had any impact on their health. In fact, a lot of educated people taught that it was beneficial.
Theodore Roosevelt, to treat his asthma
He
when
smoked.
he was a kid, smoke cigars, and drink whiskey.
Yeah, because
That's what the
that
doctor
was-
prescribed him.
and he died early. So
Well,
like,
and he'd drink like 40 cups of coffee a day. Like,
So-
it's like that's what he
Holy
did.
so
crap.
facts change when new information is presented.
Yeah, that's
but
why.
truth,
That's why.
but
I think,
truth doesn't.
That's why I think
necessarily.
Einstein said, "If the facts don't match your theory, change the facts."
Interesting. Like
Like-
reverse engineer.
Yeah.
Maybe, okay. So
And
facts
eventually-
are essentially a presented paradigm,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. But then there's things that are true, like fundamentally true, and those things empower. So
Yeah.
like whenever you're like, and that's why I don't think that facts can derive. You can't derive like one.
It seems as if
There's
there's a word that's missing from the English language to
Yeah.
describe something. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but it seems like, okay, you've got cold, hard information. It is what it is. It does not change. It just is.
Right.
Okay? That's how I would label
Like
it.
someone died.
Like Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln died.
Died.
He was shot. He died. Okay, great.
Unless there's a conspiracy
that's not-
theory
that's
about
not
it
great.
out there that he still was alive.
Sure.
Well, that's the thing. Is
Sure.
like,
And you're
you
right.
could never know
well,
that.
well, one good
I could
example.
never know
one good
unless I
example
saw
of this.
him.
One good example of this is Hitler, right?
Mhm.
They say Hitler died in
Yeah.
Berlin.
But there's
Right?
theories that he
The
didn't.
bones that are Hitler's are a woman's bones. The ones that they paraded around and told everyone this is Hitler, those are a woman's bones. And then you find out that down in Chile, there's over, like even right now, there's a 30,000 person colony of Nazis.
of past Nazis.
And there's pictures of someone without a mustache that looks exactly like Hitler that was living down there.
Now that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Now I'm gonna have to go on the internet and just be like, "Is Hitler alive?" Conspiracy
That's
theories.
the
right?
thing is
Yeah.
there.
That's
there's-
crazy.
So then all of a
These
sudden the
days-
fact that that person died may not be true.
Well, in these days, especially with the internet, there is no shortage of fact.
Yeah.
And even you could find a fact on the same exact thing, a fact that contradicts it and a fact that supports it. And
Yeah.
they would both say that they're true.
Yeah.
And so, but what you're talking about and what I think is empowering is truth is not fact based. Truth is, and if I'm characterizing it wrong, tell me. Truth is emotion based.
I don't know if it's I
so
don't
like,
know if I could say emotion. Like
what would you
like
what
it's
would you
like-
what would you call a truth then? Like what would be your opinion of a truth?
truth. So I think that
To me, truth changes. It empowers.
yeah, I
But
think
give me-
truth. I think truth empowers, but there's in terms of the way our brain works, right? So this is where I'm going to get into like sales. I don't know if I'm going to be able to describe it correctly
Okay,
or not.
Sure.
But people oftentimes, if you're marketing something, right, you say what it is, you say how it works, right? You give features, you give benefits. That doesn't ever sell.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
So
sell.
those would be the facts.
Those would be the facts.
Okay.
Right? Want to know why someone buys? Is why.
Why?
Why? Why are you doing it? That changes everything.
Yeah.
Like if you a perfect example of someone who knows how to market on why is Apple. They don't show, hey, here are all the new features and benefits. They show people doing things with their product
What they can do with it.
and why they do it. Think
Yeah.
differently. This is why we do what we do.
And so,
And so
is for you is why, in my opinion,
Yeah.
why is emotion.
yeah.
If I look at, like, for instance, why do I want money? It's an emotion. I
Well,
want to
hold on.
feel secure.
Yeah.
I want to feel that I can do the things I want. I want to
I
feel
don't know.
safe.
I
The,
just
the,
feel like
the why is a
emotion is
belief
too-
system, and
I
it's
feel-
anchored with emotion.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Why is founded in emotion.
Well, yes, it has to be.
I just feel like that's not deep enough. Like I feel like it's like
So-
like yes, could it be emotion? But I feel
Let
like
me-
there's way more there. I'd have to
in
dissect
my
it for a
opinion,
while.
when I think of truth, the first one that comes to my mind, like an example of truth, is love.
right,
Love is a truth.
right,
But what is love?
Baby, don't hurt me.
Love is an emotion.
well,
Yeah.
for example, I just
Love
watched
is an emotion.
Interstellar, right?
Mhm.
And she's trying to explain. It's kind of cheesy dialogue, but she's trying to explain that love is the only thing that can transcend time.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That like even though the person that she loves is dead on another planet and it's been 80 years there, she's still feeling that right now.
Yeah.
And so it transcends that time.
Well, and we see that the opposite of the opposite of love
So
is
what
also
is so
the
it's
opposite
truth
of love is
things
also
that
a truth.
transcend time.
Yeah, I think so. I think time is a truth, though.
Ooh, I think time is a man-made construct.
Oh, maybe. Possible.
It is. The measurement, it's just a measurement. It's a man-made measurement of things. Like how we understand time, or at least that's a better way of explaining it.
Now we're getting
How
crazy.
we understand time is a man-made construct.
Yeah, no, I agree. A second is
Yeah, what is that,
someone
right?
created
Well,
a second.
a second can change too.
Yeah.
The seconds as I
Wow.
watched my wife deliver our daughter, and she was going through natural birth, and we'd just gone to the hospital, and then that second was way longer than the seconds we drove over here.
That's true.
That was
Well,
a
and even
completely different
when you talk
sense
when you
of
talk
time.
about space travel, like beyond in terms of light years, Interstellar.
Wow.
Yeah.
They were experiencing a second, and it was like a year over
Yeah.
here.
So, what you've just said, I'm kind of connecting a dot, is this is really deep. Is that second, it had, because it felt longer when your child was being born, it was because it was packed with emotion.
Yeah. So isn't it?
And
That's
that was
what.
completely
And that's
present.
the point.
That's what I'm
the point.
saying.
You were
Yeah.
present, you felt the emotion, and it elongated, or at least it felt like the second was elongated.
Yeah.
But the measurement itself, it was still the same.
Yeah.
Truth is a feeling, right?
But truth then would
And time is a feeling.
it would
too.
truth
how I
then
perceive it.
would be something that could change based on what you feel. And I think that that's my
See, I
argument
don't-
with
I don't
saying
know. I
that
don't know
truth
about
can be
that.
something that empowers a person, because you can believe that Santa Claus is true, right? When you're a kid, did you grow up
Yeah.
believing in Santa
Yeah.
Claus? Did you believe in Santa Claus?
no, I was raised communist, and
Okay.
of course I believe in Santa Claus.
Well, some
Everyone
people
knows-
don't believe in Santa Claus, okay? Like,
Really? Do some people teach their kids that Santa Claus is?
yes, they say, "Oh, it's a lie. I will
Just
never."
taking-
It's ridiculous. Okay. In
I
my
guess I
opinion,
thought about that.
in my opinion, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Sorry if you guys teach your kids that there's no Santa Claus. No offense. Do your thing. But
I'm a little offended.
yeah.
I
So
think you're a communist.
I came to my mom one day, and I was like, I was about 8 years old, and I said, "Mom, is Santa Claus real?" And she did me a big favor. She looked at me and she asked me, "Well, what do you think?" She didn't give me the
Yeah.
answer,
Right.
if there even actually was an answer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's stupid. But anyway, and then I said to her, I don't think that a man can fly around the world and deliver to billions of people and children all of these gifts in one night. Excuse me. I just don't believe that could happen. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And she said, "Okay." And that was it.
Yeah.
And she didn't even give me the answer at first. She didn't tell me what was right or what was wrong. Because she wanted me to choose to believe something that empowered my life or helped me to grow. And so I chose to not believe in Santa Claus. And I chose to then upgrade my belief to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, because then I started, as I started going down the life coaching path, I started to realize that there are levels of truth, and people aren't, whether it's a ladder, I don't know if that's a ladder, I think it's probably different platforms. That's how I explain it. And just because, and one platform might be a little bit more quicker to get you to where you want to go. It might empower you in a more powerful way, but there are people who are not ready to believe in Jesus Christ. There are people who are not ready to believe in themselves. There are people who, even children, who aren't ready to believe in Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And so if you're not ready for a certain level of belief or a certain platform of belief, then you have to believe in something that does empower you. And that then would elongate your seconds. You'd feel more emotion, and therefore it would be your truth.
So here's one. This just came to my mind. So
Sure.
I'm literally the way I think through things is just by speaking. So this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "From those who have nothing, everything will be taken, and from those who have, everything will be given." I'm paraphrasing it, but that's roughly what it says.
Mhm.
Say that one more time.
From those who have nothing, everything will be taken. And from those who have something, more will be given, is basically what it says. And
Well, basically, that's the
So,
principle that you
that's-
can't add nothing. You can't add something to nothing.
Yeah. but that principle can travel all the way down to like the smallest animals. Like that's a principle that is true of our own lives, and is true of one example that's given is lobsters, right? Lobsters, what happens is they have their chemical brain makeup is actually similar to ours. It's almost like you can give a lobster antidepressant.
I'm gonna go into a teleporting machine with a lobster now, and I'm gonna become Dr. Zoidberg from
Good.
Futurama.
There we go.
Yeah.
But you can. So let's
Do you
say
even get that joke?
No.
I didn't watch this
You guys
show.
haven't seen the old movie The Fly?
no.
He gets into a teleporting machine and it rearranges his molecules and puts him in something else. And as he's discovering this, a fly gets in and he becomes half fly. It's a horror movie,
Yeah.
apparently, so.
But if you give a
Anyway.
lobster, let's say lobsters fight for dominance. That's what they do. When they're underneath the water, they fight for dominance. We split off from them 100 million years ago or whatever. But if you give so if a lobster loses, they start to cover up. They start to cover up their body more. They have more of a submissive stance, and as they submit more and more, they start covering themselves up more and more and more.
Yeah.
If you give that lobster an antidepressant, its chest will start to puff out, and it'll start engaging in fights more often. And so that's where I think there's a principle there. But then the lobster that continues to win actually gains more ground, find more mates, and it continually
Gets bigger.
and stronger and more confident. And so that's where I think that's a principle that's not only true in human beings, but it's true to crustaceans under the water.
Yeah.
So like that, I don't know if I can tie that. I don't know if I can tie that to an emotion, but that is true
But it is an
across.
It is an
the-
emotion.
In that moment, isn't that lobster saying, "I am better, I am stronger,
That's
therefore
true.
It's attached to, so this is where it comes back to it. Everything in a decision that a person or a thing makes, it is based emotionally.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like labeling truth as an emotion. I feel like it's
No, not
No,
labeling truth as
no.
emotion.
That's
I'm
not
saying
what we were saying.
for our minds, truth is founded in emotion.
It's a
Okay,
decision that a
that's
person
better.
makes that's
Yeah.
based on
We're
emotion.
saying, I want to feel this way, therefore I do this thing and I get this result. And
Right.
in my opinion, if you wrap that in a box, it would be truth. And
Yeah.
the truth is love.
Yeah.
yeah.
If you want to feel this way, do certain things and you will get a certain result. Box that up. That's the truth of
Guys,
love. And
this
let's
goes
ship it.
this goes right back to the bear chart that we talk about with clients, right?
Yeah.
So it's belief systems, emotions, actions. Those make up your results, right?
Right.
But emotions, that's where everything is founded. That's what creates a belief
I
system.
agree. Yeah.
So, for example, with the lobsters, but we're going to turn this into humans, okay?
Right.
And I know that this is going to sound kind of like brutal and stuff, but like if you've got two humans,
We are
they're
creatures.
duking it out for the woman, right?
Right.
And one guy loses, he's going to make a
But humans are
decision.
the only one that female is choosing their mate. So that's
He's
nowadays anyway.
he's going to make this decision about himself. If he loses, oh, I'm a loser.
Yeah.
You know, I can't win because
Yeah.
evidence shows otherwise. What
I
happens
don't,
is,
I don't
if
deserve
you
a girl
see
like
that
that
guy-
because girls like that goes to a guy like
Yeah.
this.
yeah, there's an event, there's an emotion. Together, that creates a decision. That's where belief systems are born. It's born in the emotional side of things when you go through an experience or an
Right.
event. And when you have that belief system, that could be your truth, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm choosing to believe this is my truth. I'm choosing to believe that this is whatever. But ultimately, that's what empowers a person is the belief system. Okay? So for instance, people who believe in the LDS Church, it empowers their lives.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because then that becomes their why. It's the belief system that creates the why that leads to action. Because nobody's going to take action or at least not motivated action if they don't have a why, if they don't have a
Right.
belief system of why they're doing that
Right.
action.
Right.
Once that action happens, that's what creates the ultimate result. But that's how it goes. And when a person is is hurt or traumatized, what occurs is they disconnect from the emotion. Oh, I can't be with that girl. I can't be with that person. And they formulate a limiting belief that leads to the same action over and over and over again. And that's what keeps a person stuck.
That's why you can walk down a hall and if you see someone
hunched
over, they're protecting. Like that's an actually very instinctual, animalistic type of, I need to cover my organs, I need to protect myself, or like I need to block, I need to like create space between me and this other person.
Wow, that makes so much sense. When you're disconnected from emotion, you go to your stress management part of your brain.
Yeah.
And stress management is the limbic system. It has to do with fear.
Yeah.
So if they're afraid, they'll cover themselves up to protect, right?
And
dominance.
What's weird about this though is if you can get that person just to put their back against a wall, their shoulders against the wall, and take a deep breath, they'll actually feel more confident.
They'll feel the emotion again. Yeah. It's so crazy.
When people put themselves into certain stances to feel more powerful, they actually will feel more
powerful. There's an actual
study.
Interviews, when I used to like interview and have a job other than the job I have now, when I'm free. But
wait. Can you just let everybody know, what do you do?
Oh yeah, I'm an Instagram husband. Full time. No, me and my wife run an activewear business. So that's what
among many.
But I'm on a couple of things. But what I used to do before I'd go into the interview though is I'd be like, hey, can I use the restroom? Like, yeah, I'd go in the restroom, I'd put my shoulders against the wall, and I would just sit and breathe for a minute and be like, okay. And then I would walk in just to give myself a little bit of an extra.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you had any like study on that. You probably read some books or something, because I know you read a lot of books.
Yeah.
I wrote my senior thesis on nonverbal communication, and there was one of the things that I studied from Amy Cuddy, it's Cuddy, and she talked about, and there was an actual study that she performed for people to stand in a power stance like Superman in front of the mirror, not say a word, just stand and look at themselves for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And they tested before and after. Cortisol levels plummeted and testosterone levels skyrocketed as people consistently did that every morning for 2 minutes. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many people out there, and I've dealt with people in my own life that have had struggles with this. They look in the mirror and they they don't like themselves.
Yeah.
And that happens. That is a regular occurrence. It's probably something they're not thinking about, but as especially women specifically, they're doing their makeup and they're looking in the mirror and they're just feeling terrible about themselves.
Well, to be fair, have you ever done that?
Yeah.
Have you ever looked in the mirror and hated yourself?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've had times where I couldn't even look myself in the eye.
Right? Because it's like intimidating.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
you want to do something strange sometime? Just talk to yourself in the mirror every night for a while. That's what I do before I go to bed. It's like my accountability. I'm like, hey man, how'd you do today? And then I answer it myself, and it's like this conversation. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's actually
that's actually brilliant.
So I guess my purpose in bringing that up is that, in my opinion, truth is founded in emotion.
Yeah.
Is to say, two people who can go through a very similar experience can ultimately draw different conclusions in terms of what is true for them.
Yeah.
For me, I recognize that self-love was paramount. When I love myself, I love other people more naturally.
Yeah.
And what I found personally was the belief systems that I had bought into, the way that it was packaged, the way that I felt when I went certain places, the way that I felt when I did certain things that were against, is I hated myself. I hated myself.
Yeah.
And ultimately for me, it came a point where it was like, okay, whether or not this is true factually, it doesn't really matter, because this has been my experience. And do I want this experience to continue, or do I not want it to continue?
Right.
And so then it was just it was a matter of experimenting for me. Let's try something different. And I tried something different, and I got a better result. And so that's my reason.
Yeah.
And I don't even necessarily say...
I can feel the emotion as you're talking about that.
Yeah, and I don't even necessarily say I left the church. Like, my information's still there. If one day I decide, hey, I feel like something's missing, maybe I want to go back, or maybe I want to start attending again. I want that flexibility. Like I want to live my life such that whatever empowers me, I go to it.
Right.
Whatever empowers me personally, I go to it.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what other people think, and I respect them for doing what empowers them, and I would never even want to engage in a conversation with a person where my thinking would disempower them.
I don't think you've even tried to engage in a conversation with me at all about it. Well, you just are like,
for you, like you came to me and said, "Hey Logan, have you read this?" Or like, "You need to read this." And when I finally responded,
you and I have that kind of a relationship. I don't do that with too many people.
you and me. And what I ultimately said to you is, I read that like 3 years ago, and you didn't even know. Like, you had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Because it wasn't, for me, it was a personal thing, and it was difficult because I read some of the things. I went through, even before I read anything, I just went through personal doubt. I was like, God, I've done everything. I've done everything you've asked me to do, and I'm miserable, and I hate myself. Like, I look in the mirror and I hate myself, and it's causing. And I don't even know if I necessarily recognized that in that moment, but I felt it. I'm like, this just feels gross. I'm like, I don't like myself. I don't like the way that I interact with people at work. I don't like the way that I interact with my wife. I don't like the way I interact with my son. I don't like the way I interact with myself. And so I started questioning everything that I'd ever been taught, questioned it. It was like, if this came from an outside source, it was like, get out of my face. And so I started researching everything I could. I started with the LDS website. I read their essays. Went from there. Read some other
just
things.
For the respect of audience, we probably don't want to like talk too much about all of the different things that we've read.
Sure. I went on LDS.org and I read their essays. So I mean, I think every member of the church should read those essays. If you don't know that information, then that's on you. Like, it has been given to you by the organization that you support. So I read that. I felt like there were some things missing, so I read some other things. But that stuff didn't lead me out of the church. I stayed in the church because emotionally that was where I was.
Right.
It was where I needed to be. I felt like I needed to be in order to keep my marriage going. It was where I felt like I needed to be in order to have the family relationships I wanted. And so I stayed there. It didn't matter that, to me, it didn't matter that I didn't necessarily believe it anymore. When they asked me to do certain callings or things, assignments in the church, I would tell them, hey, this is where I'm at. I think you deserve someone who's all in, and I'm just not. I was honest with people in that way. But that went that way for 2 years. I stayed in the church with still, and trying to formulate my own opinions, take things back. I would say, absolutely, I'm empowered by the idea of a heavenly Father and even heavenly parents who are perfect and who want me to be something more than I even am right now, and they see that in me.
Yeah.
I'm empowered by that. I'm empowered by this figure of Jesus Christ and how he lived his life and what he taught. I don't know if he existed, but it doesn't matter. I'm empowered by Captain Moroni.
Yeah.
From the Book of Mormon. I'm empowered by the experiences that I had as a missionary teaching that those things were true, even though I don't feel like I could do that now. I'm empowered by those experiences. And so with that mindset, I look back on the church and all of my experiences there, and I'm just grateful.
Amen.
I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for what it is. But that doesn't mean that I want it to continue. The things that I've seen in my past, the relationship that I've had with the church, I've seen personally how, because of the choices I've made, because of the emotion I've put into it, that my relationship there has actually been to my personal detriment. And it's just easier for me, it's better for me if I just remove it. I like myself better. I have a better relationship with my significant other. I have a better relationship with my son. And maybe someday when I've squared away some of those things, I'll be ready to, but I don't know. I'm not putting any pressure on that.
No expectation.
Because I feel personally like God accepts my journey.
Yeah.
Because I want to be a good person and I want to live by the truths that you're talking about.
Right.
I want to investigate them, like love and honesty and peace and power and choice and aid, like all those things just ignite me. And I've gotten to this place where I don't feel that it's necessary for me to be in a place or to go to a building in order to feel these things. Right. That I can feel them. everywhere. And that's not to say that I don't understand or I'm against going to the building. I'm not. I've seen how that's changed my life, and it's impacted me in so many ways.
You know, I've often asked myself, because I pretty much have said, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, I've gotten in a car, I've driven miles away, see you later, church, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I've actually contemplated sending in my resignation letter, even.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I'm bitter, because I'm not. Like, I'm in the same boat. I feel like it has empowered my life. Historically, I just don't believe that it is factually true, or however we want to label fact, right? I don't believe that these things are true. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I want this very, very clear. I believe that the Book of Mormon is true. And it's not based on the history of it. It's not based on if Joseph Smith translated it properly or anything like that. It's not based on any of that. In fact, like, I know that there's a lot of people who, you know, that talk about the Book of Abraham. I also believe that the Book of Abraham is true. When I say true, though, I'm talking about the principles. They empower me, or they give me thoughts and impressions that also empower me. I may not necessarily agree with it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not something that empowers my life. I believe that it does. I believe that, and now my view of God has absolutely changed, because, you know, when you leave an LDS church, it's not like leaving a Christian church and then going to another Christian church. The LDS doctrine is very different than just a Christian church. They preach different things, and I've looked at both of them, and I'm like, these are different. They're very different. Even though they both believe in Christ, right?
Right.
But I've looked at it and I've said, you know, it doesn't need to be true, because Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings empowers my life.
Right.
I really don't believe that a hobbit with his hobbit friend, they took a magical ring to a volcano and threw it into that volcano, and then they saved the world. And then suddenly, like, the tower died, all the orcs were abominable. Like,
Technically, Frodo did throw it in.
Well, technically, you're right.
It was big enough.
I
Get
get
your
it.
facts straight, man. Get your facts straight.
I get it. If anything, nobody actually threw it off. It fell off with Gollum, but
Technically, gravity did it.
technically, yes.
That's
Or
why,
is there gravity in
and
Middle Earth, or is it called
that's,
something different?
That's actually why I think Frodo has to leave Middle Earth at the end of the book.
Why? Because he didn't do it?
He couldn't, just like everyone else before him, he couldn't deny it. He couldn't rid himself of it. And that's why he says, I'm too hurt to stay here, Sam. I thought I was going to be able to stay here. I can't.
You recently read the books.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I finished them like 2 weeks ago.
We're not going to dive too
ago.
deep into that right now. We could probably
Right.
do that in a moment. But where I'm going with this is, I really don't have a problem with the LDS Church as long as they are empowering somebody's life.
Right.
I have a problem with the LDS Church and any organization and any person if it is hurting another person.
Yeah.
Or it is causing an environment that is not helping a person and is keeping them ultimately stuck. I don't support that. Okay? But that's like me saying, "Oh, I don't support guns." Well, I have two, you know, like I like guns, but I also am incredibly trained in them. I've graduated from front sight gun training multiple times. And I have like certificates saying like I'm pretty much within the top 5% of like gun users in the world, right?
Right.
I think that a responsible user of a gun should have a gun.
Right.
Or at least that's my opinion, right? I'm not trying to should on people, but it's the same thing with the church. I believe that if it is used responsibly and the principles are used responsibly, it can really, really help people. I have personally seen the LDS Church and its principles and its leadership, I have seen it transform people's lives for the better.
Right.
And not just for the better, sometimes for the best. Like, I can't argue that. I've also seen it happen within Islam.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen within people who, you know, they do like shamanism stuff. And I love what Logan said. I love that he said, it just doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Yeah.
What matters is what you choose to believe and how that empowers your life, how it changes the life of your children, your spouse, and everybody else around you.
Yeah.
Are you adding value to the life, to life and to the world, or are you, doing this whole lobster thing and allowing guns and this being afraid of guns or being afraid of the LDS Church or anything for that matter? Are you allowing it to curl you up into a ball and kick your ass?
Being afraid of yourself.
Well, and I think the fundamental difference and the conclusions that I came to with church is that it's a tool for me.
Amen. It's a tool. It's a tool.
It's a tool for me to use. Like, I don't think, like, just like a gun is a tool. It's a tool.
But that's a very different approach than what I would say is mainstream. Because most people think that and again, I might be like projecting, but
I don't think you're projecting.
A lot of people believe that it's the end all.
Yeah.
Like, your salvation will be won within the walls and the confines of this organization. Yeah. And that's where
But the funny thing about that is that's actually not based in doctrine at all.
It's very cultural.
Yeah, it's completely cultural.
Yeah.
And so with something like that, that's where I've always bucked against stuff like that. But the actual teachings and the doctrine of it is to take in truth from everywhere.
Yeah.
Bring it all in.
And that's
literally one of the founding principles.
Let's progress.
What's the story?
Better.
What's the story of Joseph Smith? He's I wanted to know, so I went and prayed, and I found out for myself.
He was a Mason. He found truth in lots of places outside of even his own dogma.
What I think is absolutely. And I'm not saying this in an attacking or a satirical or any kind of a way. I legit just think it is ironic and hilarious. We have Joseph Smith, who, he read James 1:5, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally, blah, blah, blah. Like, and it's not a blah, blah, blah. Like, truly, if you ask of God, I believe that he gives you answers.
Right.
Or whether it's a he or she or whatever God is, like
even if you don't believe in God, but you ask yourself, ask yourself the question, and you can find answers.
Yes. Yeah. So he does this, and he explores outside of his own religion, which his family was attending multiple religions at the time. Yeah. He explores out of it.
Well, and outside of anything traditional.
And then we're encouraged as members of the church to never explore. And I always had a problem with that as well. I'm like, wait a minute.
So once again, though, I think that's cultural.
It's cultural.
It is.
I think that's cultural.
Kind of. I am going to point something out. And I don't know if I have read the entire talk about this. But again, I don't know the full context. I'm just speculating with this. But Elder Oaks on February 5th of 2019, he did say researching is not the answer, when talking about how spouses are leaving due to studying church history and stuff. He said that exact line. And I looked at that and I said, I wonder if he's talking about if the solution to helping a spouse is not researching church history. Because I can see that.
Yeah.
But the way that it came across was, hey, don't research any church history, guys. Yeah. And I'm like, that's going to tick off a lot of people.
Once again, though, that's a person.
Yes,
Elder Oaks is a person, and he's not just a person. He'd been a judge, and he's a very
he's a law,
he's a human being. You know what I mean? That's there's one thing that even Joseph Smith talks about. He's like, most of the time I'm talking as a man, but every once in a while I'm talking as a prophet. He literally said he's like, you need to separate these two. I'm figuring it out as I go along, just like you guys are.
Absolutely.
And
I think it's the cultural side of it that wants to prop up figures as infallible.
Yeah. Because
then it's so black and white. If I follow the prophet, then I will never err.
Yeah, but then that's where I think a lot of this can be twisted into something insidious. Yeah. Is when you say, don't listen to your own intuition, listen to what this person says. This is what the truth is, and that's where I think a lot of people are missing the mark. They're straying for gnats while they swallow a camel, right? Yeah. They're like, oh, if I follow these rules, then I'll be okay. If I listen to what this person says and not get answers for myself, that's why I think That's why I think Nielsen is so prophetic right now. Because he's like, if you don't figure stuff out for yourself, you won't survive.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Well, and
I support that.
Well, and I think you're seeing a turn, like just even the fact that missionaries are able to make up their own rules when it comes to calling
They can
their
call
family
it,
every single week. Like that's insane.
That
is earth shattering.
Yeah.
Like I can't even believe that it happened.
It makes me feel better because my dad called me once against the rules because I was totally depressed, and it was a game changer for my mission.
I think I
had a good hour conversation, not when I was supposed to.
I fully support any principle that is, or any teaching that is based in, I trust you.
Yeah.
God trusts you.
Ownership.
So why wouldn't I trust you? I trust you.
Well, it's like, and let's go all the way back then. Like with the LDS doctrine, it talks about the premortal life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're presented options, and those options had consequences, but they had the ability to choose their options. Even though, basically, I mean, the way that it's presented is like they would lose everything if they made a certain decision.
Yeah.
God still didn't keep that decision from happening.
Yeah.
And that's where I really had to take the time to be like, hey, there are human beings inside of an organization that have fears and biases and problems, and those and they're a feeling, thinking human being just like I am.
Yeah.
And so then when they make a decision, like I used to get so mad when they do things that I disagreed with. But now I look at it and I'm like, that's just a person. And maybe they're terrified.
Don't you think it's dangerous, though, when you have this organization that claims to be the way to heaven, and then you have a culture that continuously falls short of it, but these two things are just lumped together? Like, when you go to an LDS, or when you go to any church, you experience the culture. And that is your experience.
Right.
And the doctrine and the culture, I'm like...
But I feel
in your mind, you can definitely separate it. But when you go there, they're not separate.
Yeah.
And that's I've experienced it since I've made the decision, like with my own family, to tell them this is my choice. And you hear things like, well, don't you want to be with your family forever?
Of course we do.
Yeah.
It's like,
so once
okay,
again,
so you're trying to fear me into like compliance. But what I feel like is, if there is a God, and He wants me to be my best self, and I'm doing that genuinely, then if I get to the other side and He's like, well, you didn't do this.
Yeah.
You didn't conform to these specific guidelines. Sorry. You gotta say goodbye to your son. You'll never see him again.
I always make the example.
If that's the truth, then I don't want to worship that God. I don't want to be like Him. I don't want anything to do with Him. Like, I want to throw my middle fingers up and just be like, there you go.
That's when you have to separate the person who said that to you is someone who's basing in
their fear. Yeah.
They're afraid.
I love that you bring that back.
That's
Absolutely.
it. And this was a big change for me when my brother passed away, and I realized all the ways that I disconnected with him, trying to follow a specific set of rules that weren't actually meant to be that way. Because I was entrenched in the culture just like everybody else, and I thought, oh, if someone does this, they're a bad person. If someone does this, they're a good person.
They're not going to this place.
They're not going to this place. That could not be farther from the truth.
I agree.
Like if I were a malicious entity and I wanted to destroy people, that's exactly how
I would spin it. You'd spin it slightly.
And if you don't think that, like, if you do believe in Satan, right? Then there's examples of him within the Bible using Scripture to try to dissuade the Savior, to try to dissuade the archetypal figure of perfection and willing acceptance of suffering.
It's the what if
through using Scriptures.
He
said, "Cast thyself down, for it is written."
Yeah. No. I think. Have you guys read Jesus the Christ?
Yeah.
So what I really loved is Talmage. You know, there are leaders obviously that I really love and appreciate. Talmage is one of them. Okay. Right. And he said, "If ye be the Christ, then toss yourself down and angels will catch you." And every time he tempted the Christ, he started by saying, "If you are the Son of God, if you are Jesus Christ." It wasn't necessarily that Christ needed to prove, oh, hey, if I jump down here, suddenly angels are going to catch me.
Yeah.
That wasn't what he was trying to prove. He was he was attacking the very foundation of what Christ came to earth to do.
His identity.
It was his identity.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the problem that we see even within any organization or within our own personal lives. It's the attack on our identity, who we are.
When we do certain things and our conclusion is, I did that thing, therefore I must be blank.
Not good enough, broken, and not lovable.
And for me, I looked at it, and when I pulled back and I looked at, okay, well, here's the doctrine, here's the culture, here's the church, right? The church experience. I looked at it and I said, okay, personally, I don't want that anymore. Like, I can still consume the doctrine as much as I want outside. The thing that really took it over for me was, do I want my son? Do I want my future daughter to go through the things that I went through? Or do I want to just teach them, I empower you to find truth. If you go to that church, go.
God bless you.
Great. Yeah. If that's where you find it, go. If one day you
but
find
you're
it,
paying for your own dang mission.
If one day you find it there and then the next day you don't, and you decide, then okay.
Right.
Like, that's the way I want to teach. And I feel like my own personal experience, I grew up in a box.
Right.
And then I had to find my way out of the box. Right. Well, what if when I raise my children, there's no box. There is no box.
Yeah.
I let them find themselves from day one.
So
that's my thinking.
Well, and that's to bring something up though. I think this is important. That's why I think there's a complete shift.
There's
an
attempt
to shift
to say, it into the family.
This needs to be taught at home.
Yeah.
Like, to hand it over to people that I don't personally know that well, to say, hey, you teach my daughter like about all this stuff, and this is where she's fundamentally going to learn about herself and her beliefs. I think
and just assume that it's like going to be okay.
I think that is complete, like, an utter lack of responsibility of a parent.
Yeah.
As a parent, I'm going to teach my daughter. Then she's going to go out, and what I love about church and the reason that I go and the reason that I spend time there and fulfill my callings and do all of this is because I get to have a completely different experience outside of any other place I'd be able to go.
Yeah.
I get to interact with people that I for sure would never interact with outside of that building.
Yeah.
I get to have experiences and meet people and see different perspectives that sometimes I strongly disagree with.
Yeah.
That I would never get to. And so what a church is for me is
it
allows me...
It's a tool to refine.
Man,
and it allows
you're tempting me to go back to church, man.
I love that. That's how we know we're getting a good discussion.
Because otherwise I can get stuck in an echo chamber. And I'm not... I trust my intuition, but I also know that my ego can take over. And I can get stuck in this idea that I'm always right.
Yeah.
And that's what church is.
That's why I interact with you, Dave. You're my getting out of the echo chamber.
The grounder. Jeez, Louise.
I mean, I honestly, like, I feel like with the community of people that I've begun to interact with, I kind of have created my own church. And I know that sounds maybe blasphemous, but
that's not blasphemous.
I've created a space that empowers me to be my best self. And I feel like that's what a church is, right? That's why a church is formed. That's why any organization, that's why universities were supposedly formed, was to help us become the best versions of ourselves.
The hardest thing for me, though, as a parent, is I can't have my daughter be challenged. Like, I can challenge her somewhat within my own home. I can create a space where it's open and it's a good space within my own home.
That's a good point.
But I can't drop her into controlled chaos outside of a church. Like, I can't have her go and interact. Like, you kind of can. You go to the park, you go to school. I feel like a church is such a unique place for her to go and to learn things and to experience with other people.
I just have this, and this thing always comes to my mind.
Yeah.
I think of my daughter, because I would love to have a girl. Yeah. Like, for whatever reason, I mean, I love my son, but like the relationship of a father between a daughter, I just think there's something. I mean, something very special there. So I think of my daughter being in a classroom setting in which they're teaching that the priesthood is only given to men.
Yeah.
And maybe she's called on, or she gives a comment. My parents don't actually believe that that's right.
Yeah.
How is she treated? Like, how is she going to be treated? And I don't want to even put her there.
Yeah.
I don't even want to put her there.
So that's
But that's me trying to protect. You're exactly right. That's me trying to protect.
That is a fear mentality.
It is absolutely.
And
I have to say, hold on.
Mm.
Since we brought up the priesthood, I have to say this: women don't need the priesthood. They don't need it. Like and that's where I think fundamentally men and women are they develop differently.
But if
women,
I would agree with you if
have
the
you heard of
leadership
the second anointing.
Hold on.
I would agree. I would agree with you if the priesthood was not the designation for leadership within the church. That's the thing I take issue with, is the fact that final decisions are made 100% by men. I think that that's not a reflection of the way God is.
Yeah.
When I say God, I believe in two people, and I believe that they're a pair.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother. They don't govern that way.
I don't think so.
I don't govern that way in my house.
Yeah.
So why? So that's my disconnect.
Yeah.
That's the thing where I'm just like,
yeah.
no.
So
I think that's cultural. I think it's been impacted. I think.
Well, and I guess one thing that happened to me that fundamentally changed the way I looked at the priesthood was when Elder Bednar came and he was talking to us in a mission,
mm-hmm.
and he said, I gave my daughter a blessing for her to be healed. That blessing could not be enacted. My daughter could not be healed from this until my wife had prayed over my daughter. That's when it came together. So the idea, and obviously the trouble that we have is there's so many biases, there's so many things that happened. What happens when 50,000 people are raped and killed and pillaged all the way from Nauvoo or from Kirkland all the way to Salt Lake City, and it continues. They continue to send the military after them. They continue to do these things to try to destroy these people.
Mm-hmm.
How many generations does it take to heal from that?
I don't know.
And I think it's our generation, frankly. I think that's how long it takes.
Maybe.
I think that's what it is.
Well,
that's why, frankly, and this
is
getting into principles.
You're seeing a mass movement, though, based on what you're talking about. And McLean was telling me some of the statistics recently. You're seeing a mass movement of our generation away from the church.
Right.
You are. Because they're trying, and maybe they're getting away from this, and if they are, it's great. But they're trying to enforce the box.
Yeah. This
is what spirituality is. This is what it means to be a man. This is what it means to be a woman. A woman is stay at home, and it's just no. We want no part of this. Like we want to discover for ourselves what it means to be in a relationship.
I just find
what
it,
it means
I
to
find
raise
it
children.
so interesting though that our generation is called a millennial generation.
Yeah,
like
the millennium and everything.
With everything that goes in terms of in terms of what the doctrine talks about.
Yeah,
in terms
absolutely.
Of and that's why I think that change can happen. Sometimes we wish it would happen immediately, right?
Yeah.
But the only this is what changed when we hadn't been to church for a couple of months, and one of the reasons I decided to go back and to frankly open my mouth when I disagree. Typically, what I had done is I would
love to just be a fly on the wall of you going to church.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, for a long time, I thought about what it would look like, and I just kept running up against walls. I was like, how would I deal with this? How would I deal with this? How would I deal with this?
I would have to talk to a bishop.
But how many people
and say,
are you going to be able to impact and change their perspective? Like I saw this happen in a class. There was somebody, they were going off about homosexuality, right? He was an older gentleman, very set in his ways, and I raised my hand and I'm like, just so you know, my brother is. And just so you know, these things that you said aren't actually true. Yeah. And this is actually what happens. And I went into a whole description and it became a little bit of a heated debate.
For sure.
But the end of it, I can't tell you how many people came out to me and were like, hey, thanks so much for saying that. Yeah. I agreed with what you said. And that disagreement is good. And I think that church allows us to have this opportunity to have those kinds of discussions in a respectful way, hopefully a respectful way. Yeah. Not everyone's going to be respectful, obviously. But
you're telling me it never happens if there's not the opposite voice.
But if there's not someone that just says, hey, dude, like that's... you're off base there. Like, I disagree and these are the reasons why. And not hey, I'm better than you or you're better than me.
It's so interesting because I watch it and I'm like, Dave,
hey,
fundamentally...
If church was more like that, honestly, I would go.
The only way
Dave-
church can be like that, though,
Is
is if we
Is
go.
if we go, right?
That's the difference. Like,
Yeah.
Dave, you just, and that one of the reasons why I admire you so much is you're the type of person you see the thing, and instead of removing yourself from the thing, you're like, how do I influence the thing?
Yeah.
Mine is to just be like, this thing is broken. I don't see myself ever being in a position where I can fix it. Therefore, I'm gone. Because it's like, I don't want to live by the standards that would put me in a position to be a leader in the church.
Yeah.
And I don't see a way around that. I don't see how I can go in and be like, no, I'm not living the word of wisdom at all.
Yeah.
Can you let me be a teacher?
Funny thing about so you bring up the word of wisdom, right? The word of wisdom is actually not a commandment. That's where I think the culture is inflicting upon the gospel, right? Because it's not.
The word of wisdom.
It literally says at the beginning, this is not a commandment.
This is given as it doesn't say suggestion.
It is said that this is given as a word of wisdom.
A word of wisdom.
That's
And
exactly
so
what
it's
it said as.
And so bringing up the word of wisdom, maybe things are going to change there. I don't know.
I don't think
You had
so.
one person, I'm not going to talk about church history too much, but you had one person who was a very shrewd, rule-following, very
I know who you're talking
structured
about.
person
Yeah.
that way.
And they say this
And that's the
is
person
now-
who changed it.
Yeah.
Every single person up to that point said, look, don't be the town drunk. And then you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Like,
For
that was the
sure.
whole point. And so I think that there's, frankly, the only way those kinds of changes happen, though,
Is from within.
is from within.
Yeah, and that's
And I'm not willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
yeah.
Because I think the bathwater is gross, or I disagree with something.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think that's where I think we have an opportunity to. We have such an opportunity to influence something, and now finally, frankly, Nielsen, if it wasn't for him, I would probably be in the same boat.
You mean Nelson?
Nelson. If it wasn't for him and for the way that he's like, hey, is this cultural or is this based in the gospel? This is cultural. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's gone.
all right,
Yeah.
I'm in.
You're on board with that.
yeah. If it were still like, hey, this is the structure, like you're never gonna change this. Nothing ever changes here. Which there are principles that they won't change on, and I respect that and I cherish that.
Yeah.
Here's where I have a line,
Okay.
and we probably need to wrap this up soon, just
Probably.
because
Yeah.
I have no
Yeah,
idea how
for
long
sure.
this has been going. But
Yeah, we're coming out on 5:00.
okay,
Oh, we are. Dang.
Yeah.
so it's been how long? Like an hour
We've
and a
been
half.
talking for an hour and a half. Yeah.
Good for us. This is great. I think
Time
that
flies.
my biggest thing now that I have publicly said, hey, this is what I discovered, here's kind of what I'm choosing to do, I'm pretty much out. I don't feel shame from
Yeah.
within, from God. I just don't feel shame.
Yeah.
I feel fantastic.
Yeah.
Except the only shame that I get is from members of the church. It's not from people outside of the church. It's not from people in another religion. It's not from God. It is from people who are inside of the church who are usually practicing members of the church. Now, I'm not speaking for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because I don't feel any shame from
Yeah.
Dave.
I don't feel any,
Yeah.
any from shame.
I tell
Yeah.
Dave everything. Not
Yeah.
everything, but like
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
like,
and once
that-
again though, that's a person
I get it. I get it.
in fear.
I get it. And I totally get it. You know, I'm just going to be very, very blunt with points, okay?
Okay.
I read church history. To me, it is fundamentally, in my opinion, it is impossible that it is true. At least in terms of history and facts. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. Here's where I stand in terms of church. If it is church members who are shaming me and all of this stuff, and it's not that they're shaming like just the things that I'm doing,
Yeah.
they are shaming me.
Yeah.
And I have had multiple people on multiple instances say, McLean, Satan has taken over your heart. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
That
Satan
is not-
hasn't taken over my heart.
Right.
I am helping more people than you are. Like,
Yeah.
if we want to, like, let's compare just for a moment and like puff up our chest. I don't do that, obviously, but like, I'm all about helping people. I'm all about shifting perspectives. I'm all about helping people to believe in the highest power that they can possibly believe in, so that they can become like that higher power.
Right.
absolutely.
Great. The problem is, I can't just walk into a church, sit down with my bishop, and say, okay, dude, like, I totally don't believe that the Book of Mormon's true. Joseph Smith, I don't believe that that's true. I don't believe that the Pearl of Great Price is true. I don't believe any of your scripture, but I believe in the principles that they teach. And I would love to come. I'd love to participate in, and probably even, like, state some very strong opinions in your classrooms and in priesthood, and like I would love to hold a calling. I know that you probably won't put me in charge of, you know, being like with young men, but but by the way, I understand like how to be cordial, and I'm not going to, you know, come to church high or something stupid or drunk. I'm not going to do that. But genuinely, I love the group, the gathering of people. I believe that it is a healthy idea.
Yeah.
The problem is when that idea does nothing for a person or does nothing for people, which is why I deeply appreciate how you were like, no, actually it's like boom, 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 boom. Let's have a discussion.
Yeah. I
tried to do that the last time I went to church, and I was like, all right, we're having an expansion in our city of an exceptional, like a lot of people are going to be coming to this church. We're going to be splitting the church or the ward like 7 times. And I said to him, the only way that we're going to be able to really connect with each other as quorums is if we probably dedicate the time to do so. And somebody recommended going to dinners on a regular basis. I said, that sounds fantastic. Why don't we all sit down right now and set up multiple times how we are choosing to somebody's pulling up here, how we are choosing in this moment to connect with each other. And I said, okay, maybe we do dinners like twice a month or something like that. Let's do it. And so I attempted to do that. It didn't work. And the Elders Quorum president said, yeah, so thanks everybody for your comments. We'll talk next week. And I was just like, no, like, there's no implementation here. Like, we had a really great discussion. Yeah. There's no implementation.
But there's for a lot of people, church is the time. Like, you have to look at, like, an Elders Quorum president. He's going to work, he's doing all these things, and he's like, maybe I just don't want to add this to my plate. That's because fair. It's gonna end up on me, and I frankly don't have the time or inclination to do it. Now, if you were to just say, if you were just
in a form of leadership,
who says they're not trying their best?
I mean,
like
you're
right. I think like he's trying his best. That's what most people are doing. That's what most bishops are doing. Like it changed my whole perspective because I've had some frankly dumb conversations with some bishops where I disagreed with them strongly. Now, if I were to approach it again, I think I would approach it in a completely different way, right? And that Elders Quorum president, and I don't mean to be like the devil's advocate here or whatever. But
no, I appreciate it.
But like, maybe he's working 60 hours a week, trying to take care of his family. He has kids, and maybe one of them's dealing with something that they don't ever tell anybody at church, and it's really difficult. And he's already strained. He's already doing his best. And so, if instead you're saying, hey, anyone who's interested, just talk to me after class. Let's set something up. We can all start talking. It'd be great. Then it's outside of what he has to worry about. I'm sure he'd be fine with it. Yeah. And then if you were to go and talk to a bishop, let's say if I were a bishop, right, and you were to come in and say what you just said, I'd be like, awesome, man, come.
Dude, if you're ever the bishop, I'm joining your ward. Like, I'll drive 10 miles to go to your church.
I'm just saying the only reason because if I were a bishop, I'd say I'd rather have you here.
So I can tell you and I agree with you, and I think what we're getting to is, there are tools.
We need to
there are tools in the world, churches, organizations, whatever. There are tools that help us to become better versions of ourselves. And I personally believe that truth is based in our emotions. How do you want to feel, and what truths align with that, and use those to empower you.
And that makes it very individual based.
Yeah. For me personally, I want to be involved in organizations that are willing to self-check, that are willing to scrutinize, that are willing to say, our goal is to bring about the salvation of all the people in the world. How are we doing? And what I see is there isn't.
Yeah.
There's an all is well in Zion.
Drop the ball.
Just like all is well in Zion,
Yeah.
and things just continue.
Yeah.
And eventually, I just had to say for myself personally, this is me personally,
Right.
do I want to continue? Do I want to continue in this organization, or do I want to just separate?
Yeah.
What is easier for me? What is best for me? And maybe that's selfish. I don't know. But like I said, for me, my paradigm, it came down to my self-love.
Right.
I recognized that if I didn't love myself, that I wasn't able to perform very well in all of the different roles in my life. And the church added pressure, it added scenarios, it added rules that caused me to not love myself, that caused me to judge myself harshly, that caused me to feel a lot of shame. And I saw that perpetuated in the lives of other people, and I didn't see any sort of effort to stop it from anyone. Or from anyone to say, hey, we've been doing this, we've been teaching it this way, it's been doing this, getting this result, we need to figure something different.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my approach.
Right.
And I honestly, but you're absolutely right. How best could I help an organization like that? It would be for me, it was just, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to try? Is it worth it to be there? I mean, let's just be honest.
So,
I'm not trying to downplay the church, but there's 14 million people there.
Yeah.
And it's dropping.
Totally.
It's dropping all the time.
Totally.
Well, and about 50% are active.
Yeah.
So
you've got
it's
7
just like,
million people.
why am I working there when I feel like everything I do there divides me from the rest of the world?
Right.
It causes this wall to just be up automatically. I'd rather tear down the wall personally and be open to the rest of the world.
Well, and one thing that I think is kind of fundamental is that wall isn't created by the doctrines.
Yeah.
It's not created by the scriptures.
Absolutely.
It's created by our own belief in what we think is right.
Yeah.
And the trouble is we have all these imperfect people, right?
Ourselves
included, and we have leaders that say stupid stuff. But if you're having conversations with like what I always think about is my kids, right? Because I'm solid where I'm at. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I'll continue to do what I'm doing because it gives me a lot. When a leader says something stupid, it's my responsibility to have had a conversation with her or have one directly after. That gives me an opportunity to have a conversation that maybe I would never have.
Yeah.
And I think that when my daughter loves going to church, and when
you're almost like using the church as like a tool for like
that's what it is.
Options to things to talk about, like bad things almost that like come not just the bad but the bad and the good.
Yeah.
You talk about giving her a choice and teaching her consequences, teaching her what
and it's based in the doctrine that
one thing I love is she points at primary. She says, "Dad, look at all my friends. Look how many friends I have. That's my friend." And she's pointing at the teachers and the kids. I'm like, when else can I get this? What other tool do I have in my arsenal that I can provide that kind of an experience?
I'm so torn.
But I think
I see your logic.
The thing that I would tell people,
and I'm not trying to convince you.
I get it.
I'm just saying why I'm doing this.
We're just having a very
just talking
frank conversation, and that's why I love being able to have these types of conversations with people. But I think what we're getting at ultimately is whether you choose to be in an organization or outside of an organization, these things are tools. Yeah. And you can use the bad parts of the tools and the good parts of the tools to make your life better, make the lives of your family better. And it comes down to you personally. Yeah. Connect with yourself. What is best for you? Yeah. Make the decision. And you might see some people who come at you. And
just to be fair, it might be when you're sitting down with your daughter and she's saying, "Look at all my friends," and that might be the truth that you experience within the LDS Church or within any organization, right?
Right.
And then there are times when I look up at the night sky and I connect with the moon, and that's a truth for me. But like ultimately, what Logan's saying is. And what you're saying, I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yeah, we're all just making different choices with it.
We need to use tools to empower our lives, and the church is a tool.
Yeah. Recognizing
the Book of Mormon is a tool. The Bible is a tool. All of these things are tools. how can you empower your life and your family's life to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
You have to connect to it, though. Because if you are not connected to that tool or how it's used or how you personally would use it, then don't use it.
It's going to be a stumbling block.
It's a stumbling block.
Yeah.
Don't use it.
Yeah.
Use something that is going to empower your lives. And David, I want to say, dude, like, you are the only person out of hundreds of people I've talked to in the past 2 months who has gotten me to consider, maybe I should go and attend an LDS church. Not because I believe that it's true,
Right.
but because I believe that not the culture, but the community that can be created and the lessons opportunity that we can all gain from it, it's a tool. You have shifted my ability to look at the church, and I want to say thank you for that. Like I saw the church and the leadership, and I kept looking at it, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I really have a hard time supporting some of the things that I've been reading about and discovering, and it's not from just LDS sources anymore. But ultimately, it is a tool.
Yeah.
You have tons of statistics about guns killing people. No. It's people killing people with guns.
Right.
It's people killing spirituality with the LDS church. That is what I have a problem with.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I have the same problem.
And he has the same problem.
I think,
I have the same problem. I just think that the organization and the community, it doesn't matter what church you go to. I've been to a bunch of other churches.
Sure.
You're going to run into the same thing because people are the same. You could go,
I can see that.
You could go, like if you with your view on guns, let's give that as an example,
Sure.
right? You go to LA, why don't you go to Facebook and just explain what your views are on a logical manner? I guarantee you're going to get shamed.
Oh, of course.
Immediately. You don't care about kids. You
That's a
want
really
kids
good
to die.
analogy.
Like that's going to happen immediately.
Or
because
abortion
as
or
human,
anything.
As human beings, that's the natural
Our
reaction.
natural tendency is to say, wait, you're not doing the exact same
Yeah.
thing I am? What the is wrong with you?
Because our natural, this is like a post that I did the other
I
day.
found
I'm like,
myself in that same trap so
Oh,
many
I do it all
times.
the time. That's why, I mean, I always, people are like, oh, I'm not racist. I say, well, I am. I know fundamentally, like, in there, it just happens because I know
You're a white male.
I have the natural...
grew up Christian.
I grew up
I
Christian.
You still are a Christian.
In America, like, I believe that all of those things are best because that's my experience. There's a part of me that believes that. Is that right? No. But there's a part of me that just believes it because that's the box I was born in.
Yeah. Well,
I think we need to clarify that really quick. You do have darker skinned friends.
Oh,
you do, I want that very, very clear.
No,
you're not a supremacist or anything.
No, I'm not a white
like
supremacist.
That.
No,
but
I'm not
you have
at all.
tendencies to think my
way
ways are
is
better.
best. My way is best.
And
my
to
way
be
is
fair,
best.
if that's the case, everyone is a racist.
Well, I don't know.
That might be a topic for another day.
I don't know if it's
Let's not get stuck in the weeds.
I don't know if it's necessary to. I don't know if it's necessary to talk about the label.
Yeah.
I always would say I have racist tendencies. Like,
Yeah.
If I'm in a car, my family's in there, and I'm in a rough
Yeah.
neighborhood, and I see a group of
But
black
that's-
guys,
yeah.
I will lock the window.
But
that's
even
just a
with
natural
that
thing.
though, even if it was a white guy though, and he had tattoos on his neck. And
Oh yeah,
shit,
I'd lock the
I would
door
lock
for
that.
that
that.
doesn't matter.
So there's
If he was
judgment.
dressed
There's
like-
judgment.
So is that
Sure.
so my fundamental question is that if you saw a black guy walking down the street and he's dressed nice and he looks sharp,
I
are
wouldn't
you
lock
gonna
the door.
feel anything?
No way.
I don't
So
know.
it's like- so it's
I
like-
don't know.
So it's like, is that fundamentally just a culture?
I
Sure.
worked
You know
in
what I mean?
I worked in custom
And so
suits.
it's like
before.
dude, I
We're
don't
getting
know if
so
that's
off
true.
topic. I'm sorry.
But anyway,
Okay.
so to finish to have me wrap it up, I guess. What I would say is,
I trust you to wrap it up.
I feel like the church is a tool for us, and I've seen other organizations, they have the same issues, and the only way that I can see to be able to solve it, because I think that there's so much value there, I don't think it's worth throwing it out.
Yeah.
And that's where it makes me really sad, is when I see people who they learn something and then they decide, they're like, this whole thing's gone, all my spirituality is gone. I'm
It's not-
getting rid of everything.
It's not true anymore.
Yeah, now I'm just going to go do all those things that I've been holding back on that I actually wanted to do.
I'm
Like-
gonna try alcohol, right?
Yeah, which, like,
Yeah.
frankly, like, anything with the word of wisdom, I'm like, that's just dumb. That's just, like, a dumb, like, just try it when you're there. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
it doesn't
like,
matter.
it's so small. Like, the word of wisdom, for example, like, is a principle. It's not even a commandment. Like, it's just this little teeny thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it obviously has principles of truth within it.
For sure.
100%. But so I think that oftentimes though people want to rid themselves of whether it's religion, whether it's faith, belief, like they want to rid it all.
Yeah.
And that's the only place that I'm like, just take a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Take
Slow
some
down.
time. What
I
are the
think-
parts you like? What are the parts
Yeah,
you
I
don't
think
like? Yeah.
I could be guilty of that, just because, you know, when I found out about it, when I read the church history, what it did to me was it said, you know, McLean, what if none of it's true? Because you prayed about this thing, and
Right.
you know, you now have a different perspective of it, and it is getting you to question your spiritual experiences, which, in all honesty, is the foundation of most people's religious beliefs, is their
Right.
spiritual experiences. And it wasn't that I threw God out or threw
Yeah.
Christ out. Sure, yes, I went out and I tried a couple of things, like alcohol, for
Yeah.
example. But ultimately, I didn't want to throw out the baby.
Yeah.
I do want to believe in Jesus Christ. I find it difficult to
Yeah.
sometimes.
There's definitely a transition.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
transition
I think if you disagree with the box, there's no point in throwing out the pearl.
No,
You know what I
I
mean?
agree.
Like that's
I
like
firmly
there's a
agree.
pearl inside of a box. That box is
Or
a
maybe
tool
there are
to
a few.
carry
Maybe
the pearl.
there are
you
several
know?
pearls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take them out before you chuck the
Yeah,
box.
it's like
Yeah.
that's the only time that I'll push back a little bit stronger is when I'm just like, dude, just don't throw this out yet. Like don't throw out the idea that you can redeem yourself. Like and the idea that Christ has been able to take those things already, they're already paid for. It's done.
Yeah.
And that there are fundamental principles.
A lot of beauty in that idea.
there has
there's-
to be. Or
and
no.
there's-
Or
and I just
something
wanna say-
fundamentally
we
The
wouldn't have.
fundamental truth that I have come to understand, having seen it from many different perspectives now, and tried to live many perspectives
Right.
now, is the principle of the atonement is, hey, you don't need to feel ashamed.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're a sinner. I don't condemn you.
Learning.
Even if you're the naked woman who was just caught in adultery,
Yeah.
who is sitting before the Savior of the world, like, there is no shame. I fundamentally believe that there is a problem with shame.
Totally.
And I feel that
And if I was a malicious entity,
That's
that's
where
what I
you
would
would do it.
create.
Because if you can get people to doubt who they are based upon what they do,
it destroys
then
everything.
They will never stop doing that thing.
Yeah, they'll
But
never
what,
give it
what
up.
Christ gave to that woman in that moment was an opportunity to say, hey, what you've been involved in, is this how you want to live your life? Like, I'm not shaming you. You're not
Yeah.
condemned. Like,
Yeah, he
and I'm
asks
not
you.
even saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
okay what you're doing. What do you want? Like,
Yeah.
How do you want
Beautiful.
to live? Do you want to live the life like me? Then be perfect.
Yeah, and
And that's a process.
And one
it's
thing,
a process
one thing that's
to get
hard
to that
about
point. And you're going to make lots of
yeah.
mistakes to get there.
Well, and one thing that's hard about saying perfect is we don't even have the word to describe what he's saying. Like he means whole. Like when I think of Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother, I think of people who are whole. And frankly, this is my own personal belief, but I think they're still growing.
Probably.
I think they're still,
Or their life
like-
would be really boring.
because I don't think
That's
perfection.
my
I don't think wholness is an idea that
They're just
you've
up there like,
arrived.
Well,
I think it's a principle, just like the flowing water. That if perfect was a place that you landed at, you would grow stagnant and you would start to die.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. I think that, just to kind of wrap it up,
Yeah.
We've said that so many times, and we just
Right.
keep going.
it's because, I mean, dude, it's because we know
Let's just
how
say
to
that. Let's
connect.
just say what it is.
Yeah.
We just want to keep talking about
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The way that I'm starting to understand God is there is an infinite ability to create. There's an infinite ability to explore. There's an infinite ability to fail. This may rub some people the wrong way, but I believe that God fails until he succeeds.
Yeah.
I do not believe that, that might be interesting. I'm going to give that a shot. That's how I see God's theories on things.
Yeah.
I think he's like, I want to create that.
Well, and to believe that would be to say that God never tries anything new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think
if we
he
believe that he
does.
is perfect, that means there's no newness. It's not exciting.
Well,
the
with
idea
that
of heaven...
with that definition of perfection is a place that you arrive.
Yeah, I don't want that, okay?
Yeah.
Like, the way that I'm starting to understand heaven is... It's constantly flowing. It's constantly moving. Constant discovery. Constant expansion.
Yeah.
The way in which I'm starting to think that when we die...
No, it doesn't start when you die.
Yeah.
Well,
what you're describing is right now.
My idea is, like, let me finish my thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you die, we expand to, like, an infinite degree. And I feel that if we want to do that today, it starts not with our body, but with our mind. And with our heart.
I personally believe that the day we die, we will be very surprised at the fact that we are the exact same person.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Because if I die and all of a sudden I like went from level 25 to level 99.
I'm a level 99 paladin!
But like, go with me on this. The reason why you like Dungeons and Dragons is because it's not just about having fun when you're at level 99.
Oh, it's about having fun at level 1.
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So
Oh
the idea that once we die we're gonna skip levels, to me that would be robbery. You'd be robbing me.
That's the whole reason we came here.
Yeah,
is
it's
because
to
we
experience.
couldn't
Wow,
understand
I
pain,
love
we
that.
couldn't understand suffering, we couldn't understand a lot.
We came to fail. We
Yeah.
came to sin.
And-
we came
and
to
the-
make mistakes
and-
so that we
yeah.
could learn.
Yeah, and if you understand mindsets, there's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset.
Thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast. We appreciate your support. Make sure you follow us on all the social media accounts listed below in the description. And go